Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street, a Kaspa video for you guys today, hopefully a quick and easy one. The market, as you know, is quite slow at the moment, so it's a bit of a good opportunity just to take stock of everything that has been going on. Also still concluding really what we may perceive to see in the near future with the market in general, and of course Kaspa, the KAS token on the exchange. We did the last video, I think in December, we did a bit of a recap as to why I was still excited about this project. I was kind of in a bit of a limbo moment in regards to what I will be doing with this token. So we'll go into a bit more detail about that, just from a personal perspective or opinion based rather than financial advice, of course. Don't forget, before we go into this one, to smash that like button and also hit the subscribe button if you have not done so already. So welcome to the channel if you are new. We do try to mix up what projects and tokens we cover. If there's one that we haven't done so or you want us to cover, please do let us know in the comments, and it just helps me build those research planning aspects as well. I haven't done a video for about a week or so, been very busy. Well, there's a few events coming up actually, especially in the blockchain world. Of course, we've got Paris Blockchain Week just around the corner in April. Let us know if you're going to any of those. So yeah, some exciting things going on in the markets, of course, as well. So let's go into this one. As of news wise, there isn't really much around Kaspa at this moment in time. I just wanted to reiterate something I mentioned before, and it's always good practice if you want to perhaps have a good overview of each token or project in terms of news and updates. If you've got Google, of course, very simply, you can type in Kaspa News or whichever one you're following. There's a news section on Google. Always helpful, really, to see what's been going on in the last 24 hours or more recently, as quick as possible, and in the longevity of things as well. As I said, nothing major really has been happening other than the usual updates of progression of the mainnets and things like that with Kaspa. And in general, for me personally, I'm kind of reiterating what I said in the previous video, was more around my implications as to why I'm holding Kaspa still. I look to accumulate, certainly in this weekend coming. No particular reason for this weekend, it's just that's when I've got time to actually focus on it properly. I should really probably have some limit orders set for Kaspa, I haven't done so. In general with my portfolio, which I will get round to hopefully this weekend doing a video on what projects I still hold, which ones I will be potentially dumping and which ones I'm selling, etc. in the near future. But yes, KAS or Kaspa is one of the newer ones and probably one of the very few, if not maybe the only one that I'll be adding to my portfolio this year. For those that do not know, I mean, obviously I've been investing for some time, not as probably as long as many people out there. But certainly since 2019. So when people are all excited about the movements of XRP, etc., of course I am, because, well, I was investing in those at very nice low prices, and those have had some great progression over the years, and particularly in the last sort of 3 or 4 months, with exception probably of actually the last month and a half, where the market has stagnated a bit, especially when we kind of got nearer that point of Donald Trump becoming the president, or, well, actually being instated into the office, of course. That's not any fodder or anything like that as such for the market. It's just how the way it goes. I think a lot of that was priced in, and now we're just playing that waiting game, see what happens on that point. As I said, it's not much news, so I'd rather not waste everyone's time and actually go perhaps straight into the topic of the chart. This is where I see it at the moment with regards to Kaspa in terms of my positioning. It's currently floating around the 10-cent mark. A few weeks back, beginning of February, did reach down to around about 7.5 cents, I think, or maybe just under, which is a really good buy point if anyone got in there. Of course, I didn't really anticipate it to go as low as that so quickly, but as I've said before on the channel on many projects, it's very easy, whether it's an individual project or the market in general, just switch just like that, click of a finger, in the space of a couple of days. It really can move in both ways, of course, as well. I mean, look at this. You go back to the 31st of January, floating around 13 cents, or 13.5 nearly, and then dropping down to around 7, just over the 7 mark. So almost a half a drop, really. a 50% reduction, which is quite incredible. And we see that a lot in the crypto market, right? But my point being for now is two things. First and foremost, the previous video I did, this is the fib level that I moved into the chart in the last video. You can see we're broken below that support level that we saw. So that broke through around about, I think, the 1st or 2nd of February. You can clearly see it didn't hold that very well at all. It just broke straight through. And actually, when that did kind of happen and it hit that point, that's when the market kind of threw itself a bit of a wobbly across the board. And in Kaspa's particular situation, got stuck down here. So we had the opening. You can sort of see, in fact, if I just zoom in. I have my chart set up like this because I always think it's quite a nice way to see the opening and closing. So you can see it opened actually up here and almost pretty much immediately dropped significantly in that period of time. So you could argue, I think if I remember correctly, that on the 2nd of February was when the market done a bit of a drop. And then within that period of time, within a couple of hours, as the market switch across time zones and things, that continued throughout the night. So if people were awake during the night or early mornings, they would have seen this coming down. It retaliated really well though, because it actually pulled itself back up to 11. So if you took advantage of those trades, fantastic. Well played to yourselves. Yeah, 11 cents down to pretty much 7, and then pretty much straight back up to 11 again. Absolutely brilliant. If you took advantage of that. I wish I had got maybe a bit of that around that sort of 7-8 cents mark. I missed it completely. I'll be honest with you. But now I'm just waiting for that next stable mark. And in fact, my strategy all the way has always been to not chase the bottom or the top. You don't know where the tops and the bottoms can always be. It's never guaranteed. So what I tend to do, may sound crazy, I wait for all of that action to occur. I don't FOMO anymore like I used to when I was first starting out in crypto, and I don't let emotions take control either. So I just sit back for a bit, even if I have to wait a few days. Yes, I might have missed those big drops, but in the grand scheme of things, we're actually in a really good position right now around this 10-cent mark. Now you see the sideways movements. This is really in limbo at the moment because on the bottom left here, you see 44, pretty much on the nose on both the 14 and the 28. What that tells us is there's obviously more opportunity to go upwards, understandably, and less risk of it coming down. But because of this sideways movement over the last few days, you will see that is squeezing. It's squeezing a bit more. So if we look at the MACD levels in this little chart down here, you can just about see the green just above the yellow. If that's to touch, we're in a bit of a predicament as to whether that can support and then break off again, or if it will cross over and potentially go into that bear market. So on a very, very close scale, you can really get some good indications on where this could get to. So at the moment, when you zoom in, it's quite interesting actually how slightly separate they still are. But the numbers on the left-hand side are suggesting otherwise. So when we take out the consideration the previous fib level we've had drawn in, because we were taking that recent low point, one of the recent high points, trying to sort of dictate where we could get to from a higher perspective. The lower ones, I'm going to use this previous fib level that we drew in one of the many previous videos of Kaspa. Well, I say many, I think I've only done a handful, but it's certainly one of the few at the beginning of the Kaspa journey that I've had. So we can now play this out. So what's really interesting, guys, is this. The drop down to 7 correlated very nicely with this fib level here at around 7.4 cents. Don't you think that's crazy? Look at that. Pretty much bang on. So when I've talked about this in the past, fib levels, take with a bit of a pinch of salt. If you're using that as a strategy to buy and sell, don't always go for the exact line. You can go for something slightly below it or just slightly above it. So in this instance, if you were buying Kaspa on that way down, you would have a few trigger points here on the way down. You could have had 9.6, which is good DCA as well, and 7.4. Hindsight's brilliant because you've been at 9 and you saw the fluctuation. Oh, you should have waited, but you would never have known until it actually happened. So that was really interesting to see that marker point here. We did draw this one up here. As I said, I wasn't really expecting it to be fair, to drop down that support level. It just shows you how overpurchased the market really was in that period of time over that 2-3 months. So it's recorrected itself. It's done a really good job of it. And I think, as I said, we're getting this stability again. So again, not always focusing too heavily on exact markers of the fib level because they're never fully accurately put on there. Some people manipulate them to complete their story. I just put them as close as I can really to some of the lower regions and the higher regions. It's just based on data. Mine aren't like manipulated to just create a narrative, but they give me a guideline, right? The other thing you can do is kind of match them up with others that are on maybe a medium or a longer term level as well. Gives you a bit of an indication to go, well, okay, don't have to go on that line particularly for a buy or sell moment. I can also look at previous data also and conclude that maybe I could move something in between here. Also within these sections, you can potentially draw, if you really want to go macro level, in between these lines, which give you some other indicators of positions. I mean, generally speaking, it depends on how much you're putting in, what's your reflective target and your sell points to actually determine is it even worth purchasing, say 9, 8, 7, 6, etc. If you get what I mean, in those small incremental numbers. I'm more interested in the kind of bigger moves. So now that we've seen the price go from 20 cents all the way down to 7, I've missed it, okay. However, this current point in 10, even if it came down, I'm still quite happy in this because we've been at lower points before. I think Kaspa is a great opportunity, of course, long-term potential, massive, and the adoption aspect. We'll go into the price points where I think it will go to, reiterating previous videos in a second. My point being is that this is a project that's got more awareness than it had maybe a year or two ago. And it's also something that's getting very close to a bit of a switch on. Of course, regulations as well, other variables around the world right now this year, new financial standardizations, legalizations, everything. It's almost like it's almost waiting for all these things to be calmed down, and then it might launch itself, not just in the market, but actually setting itself as a key adopter, a key utility project. So it's now down to 10, pretty much halfway from that high point before. So if you've got half that reduction, I would say that's a bit of a success to DCA and to apparent, in my opinion. I will probably this weekend be buying some manually around this price. I'm not really fussed about putting limit orders between sort of 10.5 and 9.5 cents. I'm just going to do a manual order if it stays around this area. But I will be putting some capital or some ammunition here back down, maybe not so much again on the line, but slightly above it. So perhaps where we saw these 2 or 3 touch points around here, I might put it slightly above that to maybe around 8.7 cents, just to gain that momentum of roughly a 2 cent saving, which could mean some good numbers being accumulated for KAS in my portfolio that I can wait for in the future to sell. That's my thoughts and feelings of the price point right now and with Kaspa. My initial thoughts, which I'll repeat, really not too far different from what I said in the previous video. If, and this is kind of like a moderate scenario really, if we can get moderate adoption with Kaspa, or at least the beginning stages of that, and a steady market in 2025, yes, okay, we might have some explosive chart movements across the board, maybe even with KAS as well, like we saw in 2021. It may be as big, it may not be, but if we can moderately grow that, I consider, and this isn't just based on the fib levels, we talked about this in previous videos, I think that we could easily try and get towards that 50 cent mark, between 50 cents and maybe $1. Some people will argue, oh, it should be more than that, it should be more than that. Absolutely agree, but I'm not sure if that would happen this year. It really depends on how much money is going to be thrown at this, the timing, the momentum. Is there an adoption story for KAS at that moment in time when the bull market hits, if it hits? That's why I think, logically, for me, I'm almost investing in KAS for maybe 4 or 5 years' time, not so much this year. Who knows? If I'm buying at 10 cents, we get to 50, I may look at the consideration of selling initial profits or initial capital off. If it gets towards $1, okay, I'm listening for sure. But we've got to hit these stages first. So maybe potentially if it gets to 65 cents or 77, I'll start being interested in selling. This is me personally. Others may have different strategies and thought process around that. For 2028 or maybe even the 2030 run, who knows how long that might be. Usually around 4 or 5 year cycles, right? First and foremost, be interesting to see what we can accumulate KAS in the bear market, the next bear market. Second point is if we get to those 2028 periods and we've got some stability over these coming years, there's no reason why this couldn't go beyond $1 into the $150, the $250 mark. it'd be quite interesting. But I can't really put fib levels in right now because the data will not be there. As I said, I'm not going to manipulate the fib levels to achieve that reasoning behind a target goal. That's just my perception, really, based on kind of similar projects that have launched in the past, albeit different technology aspects. The principles are relatively still the same, and still is the logic as well, the psychology behind why the projects grow at those moments. It depends on marketing and things like this, how many channels cover it, etc., etc. So don't be surprised, you know, if we get towards maybe that $2.50, $5, potentially even $10 in that time. You know, by that time, blockchain will be very heavily integrated in a lot of frameworks, a lot of standard structures, infrastructures worldwide. So it's going to be really interesting. And I think that's where a lot of projects, like I've said before, like the likes of Hedera, Algorand, Kaspa, Quant, all of these guys, you know, I'm sure they'll have a great year this year. Like Kaspa will have a good year, I'm sure. But fast forward to when blockchain are actually integrated and we're not focusing on narratives or narrative projects that are just in the moment, quick run of money, jump onto the next thing. I'm talking about longevity of the technology in general. It's phenomenal. Kaspa is phenomenal. So that's not me being a negative ninny. I'm just saying, just be considerate to where the market is right now, where we think it will be this year, not just based on random numbers in our head or because someone's got excited on YouTube and put some ridiculous numbers out there, but actually think about it logically. Think about what KAS is, what it does, when will it actually potentially be adopted or integrated or actually working in real world case studies, whether that's this year or in 4 years' time. The growth will definitely be there. So that's why I'm saying I'm not too fussed about 10 cents, 8 cents, whatever. I think there's a long-term plan here. If your long-term plan, whether it is this year or in 4 years' time, it should still be quite exciting to think about that logic around it. If it does go to 78 cents, if it does go to $1.50, $2, $10, wow, buying at 8 cents, 10 cents, 15 cents, depending on how much you put in, may not actually be that much different in terms of the actual goal of when you're selling. So that's part and parcel really of the thought process. Again, not financial advice, just my opinions, my thoughts, the strategy that I've dealt with all my projects that I hold in my portfolio. One quick last remark. The indicators on the right hand side here are all red. The one that I'm particularly interested in is probably the year mark. Why? Because that gives us a bit more of a definition as to where we were, obviously this time last year, hence the year. But the point being is we can logically think about how much more advancement we have ahead of us potentially, rather than is there a lot of risk. Of course there's risk in any crypto and any investment, but it's reduced significantly at this moment in time because we're already at those lower regions. This number has been pulling up the last year. So let's keep an eye on it. They're my thoughts and feelings on Kaspa. Try to keep this short and sweet. Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know the comments and thoughts. Sorry, your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.